So troubleshooting the home server can be fairly simple, but it can also become very complicated. So here are some steps to help you troubleshoot your home server. First off, make sure that your sleep settings are set up correctly. I actually have mine to where it never goes to sleep. You might want to try that just so that way you have 24-hour access to the server and you don't have to worry about if it's going to sleep at 11 p.m. and waking back up at 8 a.m. Make sure that your backups aren't going to fail because you have your backup scheduled for 1 a.m. when it's actually asleep. So definitely make sure that your sleep settings are set up correctly and nothing is conflicting with that. You also want to ensure that your server isn't being overloaded. You can go into Task Manager or Resource Monitor and make sure that your processor and RAM and even your disk are not being overloaded. Also make sure that the network isn't getting overloaded as well. If these things are happening, check out what's causing it, and you might have to kill that process, or if it's a process you don't want to stop, wait and then go back to it a little bit later and try again because maybe the resources have then been freed up. You also want to ensure that that user is set up correctly on the server. If they're not set up in the server like I showed you in the last video, then the server is just going to reject them because they think some random person's trying to hack in. You want to verify their credentials as well, because if you go to access the server but you aren't using the correct credentials, it's obviously not going to let you in. Don't forget to check their permissions on the server. So you'll want to go into the sharing settings, and you also want to go into the security settings, because if one is set up correctly and the other is not, chances are they're not going to have the proper settings to be able to get in based on the permissions that are set for them. Another thing to try is to exit File Explorer if you're on a Windows computer, or exit Finder if you're on the Mac. The best way to do it is to kill that process via Alt F4 or Command Q on the Mac. So go ahead and kill those processes and then get back in. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. The best thing I've found, if all else fails, is to go ahead and reboot the local computer. Sometimes the local computer just freaks out and doesn't really want to connect properly, so rebooting it kind of refreshes it and refreshes any and all services that are running in the background. Next up, you'll want to reboot the server if the issues still aren't fixed. If none of that works, the last thing to really try is to put all the drives back to factory settings with the permissions, whether it's under sharing or security. You want to make sure everything is back to factory settings, and you'll want to start fresh with all of your permissions. Redo the sharing permissions, redo the security if you need to, re-add users. But basically at that point, if nothing else works, you're going to have to start fresh. Hopefully you don't have to get to that point. In my experience, exiting File Explorer and Finder, or even rebooting the local computer, those actually have been my best friend anytime an issue has came up. And hopefully those work for you. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down below. As always, thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe.